Hey everyone, this is part 1, chapter 6 of 1984. I guess I'll probably start off by saying that I already recorded probably a good 20 minutes. I almost finished recorded the whole darn thing. And I've never done this before, but I didn't like it. And I deleted the whole thing. And I'm starting fresh. I was just getting incredibly distracted. Didn't like what I sounded like. And it certainly didn't have to be 20 minutes. So I'm really hoping that this one's a lot shorter. Because chapter 6 is a really short chapter. And there's not really a whole lot to discuss. But anyway, I found a way, I guess, through my distractions to stretch the video to 20 plus minutes. And so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen this time. Now look, if you watched my part 1, chapter 5 video, I was so upset. Because I recorded obviously the whole thing, and then after 15 minutes the video cut out and my audio was still there, but the video was all gone, and it drove me blood red mad. And so I have a couple of theories as to why that happened, and so not that they're of any value to you. Not that you even really care all that much. But anyways, I got my theories as to why that happened. And we're hope that we get through this one and we don't have any problems. So that's the hope. That's the hope, that I can be as clear as possible and I can put my PowerPoint slides up here, and that it's just a nice seamless video. But it's technology, so who knows? And also, speaking of which, in my last video, I don't know why the audio sounded the way that it did, because I did a whole bunch of mic checks, and then it sounded like I was in that video eating the microphone, and it sounded garbled and staticky and horrible. So I don't know. I have the microphone this time further away from my face. I'm still speaking at a regular volume, using my regular voice, just like I did the last time. So, again, who knows? By the time I go to edit it, maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse. But I've done so many of these videos that it's driving me crazy that I haven't perfected it by now. But anyway, it is what it is. So look, what else did I want to say? I think that was it. So let's get right into it. I always say that let's get right into it, and then I end up talking for way too long, and no wonder the videos are 20 plus minutes. But I mean it this time. Let's get right into it. Chapter 6 is focused around sex in the world of 1984, and about how Big Brother has corrupted sex. Big Brother has changed sex into something that is chore-like, something that is dirty, something that people shouldn't want to engage in. And specifically, the young women have been brainwashed to believe that it is all of those things. It's a chore. And so there are really two women that we're going to focus on in this chapter. One of them is Winston's encounter with a prostitute prole woman, and the other one is his wife Catherine. And now you should remember, of course, because I introduced her to you on day 1, that Winston is married. Her name is Catherine. They don't live together, and we don't know what happened. And I told you that one day you will read about what has happened to Catherine, and that's what we get in this chapter as well. So that's really my plan, is to just kind of highlight these two women through the topic of sex, and then that's really it. It's a nice chapter because these two women, Catherine and the prostitute, are juxtaposed to each other, and Orwell does a really great job here of kind of highlighting two very different sexual encounters, and why both of these encounters are not meaningful to Winston, which obviously we'll talk about. So Big Brother has corrupted sex, has changed sex, and again they have brainwashed people, their citizens, into believing that if you absolutely have to engage in sex, it is for the purpose of making children, make a child, create a child, and develop them into eventually serving Big Brother. And I think the perfect example of that is the Parsons family, right? The way that Tom and Mrs. Parsons, the way that they are developing their two young children, we can see, and there's been a few examples already shared by Tom Parsons in the last chapter about just how dangerous his kids are. And so if you're Big Brother, you're seeing that family as kind of like the ideal Big Brother family. That raising, the purpose was to have kids, which they've done twice, and are developing them to serve the government. So throughout this entire chapter, Winston is giving us little snippets of a journal entry or diary entry about his encounter with a prostitute. Of course, this would go off right in the middle of the thing. Driving me crazy. Now I lost my train of thought. I'm not starting all over again. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not starting all over again. So now I gotta pick up the pieces here. Where did I leave off? The snippets of Winston's writing in his journal, giving us little bits of information about this encounter that he had with a prostitute from 3 years ago, which brings us, of course, to 1981, and this encounter, just to put it plainly, I mean, if by this point you've probably read the chapter, and if you read it well enough and you've read all those snippets well enough, you know that this encounter is purely for pleasure. It is gross. The woman is much older than he is, not in great health. Right? He mentions that she doesn't even have any teeth. It's a really gross, dirty, and uncomfortable encounter, to the point where Winston makes a few comments about wanting to shout filthy words. He wants to be able to spit. He wants to be able to knock over a table. He wants to show that disgust in himself for encountering with that prostitute. And so really that's what you're walking away with, is just, Winston having really no choice but to go and satisfy that sexual part of himself, but having to do so in this kind of really gross and unclean way. By comparison, of course, and like I said, juxtaposed to this prostitute is Catherine. And we find out quite a bit of information about Catherine, despite the fact that the chapter is so short. And one of them, which I'm sure didn't escape you, is that Catherine seems to be the female version of Tom Parsons. She's an idiot, a swallower of slogans, and is clearly, a true believer in Big Brother. So much so that she has been corrupted by Big Brother. She's been brainwashed, and led to believe that sex is dirty. And so we don't get any backstory about how Winston and Catherine met. We don't get any encounter about them convincing a tribunal that they want to be married so that they can have children to serve the government. We're not given any of that information. So we don't know even, a rationale behind why Winston would want to marry her in the first place. Why would he agree to that marriage? So I guess that's besides the point. But Catherine is somebody who has certainly been brainwashed to believe that sex is dirty. It is chore-like. You shouldn't want to engage in it. So if you read Winston's description of sex with his wife Catherine, that is also a scene that is very uncomfortable. Now it's not dirty and it's not gross like the encounter with the prostitute, but the encounter with his wife is really uncomfortable, and it's not the stereotypical sexual encounter that one would expect from a husband and wife. And so to that point, it's described, the sexual encounter with Catherine is described as uncomfortable, that when Winston touches her, she winces. Her eyes are shut tight during the encounter. Her body kind of stiffens, and she ends up just kind of submitting and just allowing it to happen, because she has been brainwashed to believe that this is a dirty act. But she's only going through with it in the hopes that her and Winston will be able to have a baby that they can develop into one day serving the government. Which leads into the reason why they're not together anymore, which is that after these sexual encounters with each other, they're not successful in having a baby. And so they decide to just go their separate ways. And so again, depending on how you're setting up your notes, it's good to do that, do a comparison between the prostitute and Catherine, is to do that comparison. Again, with the prostitute being gross, really dirty, and just kind of uncomfortable, with Catherine, his own wife, just really uncomfortable. And again, with that idea that they're going to have a child. With the prostitute, it was all about pleasure. And of course, my big point, is that at the end of this particular chapter, Winston is so unsatisfied with both of these sexual encounters. And so I always ask my class, well, what is missing? What's missing in these sexual encounters, whether it's pleasure seeking or for the purpose of having a baby? What is missing? And the answer to that, of course, is love. That's the key ingredient in a sexual encounter. And if that's not there, then ideally that sexual encounter is not going to be as meaningful as it should be. And so that's why, at the end of the chapter, Winston, and I don't think he really even, and maybe he does, I don't know, but I don't even think he really references specifically love. But he's clearly disappointed in both of those sexual encounters, and the lack of love certainly would be why. And that's because in the world of 1984, there's really no such thing. So I hope that helps to kind of explain. I'm just going to check my notes really quick. I think I mentioned everything that I wanted to. Yeah. So I think I kept it under 20 minutes. It should be under 20 minutes. So yeah, again, a really short chapter, but important. And the topic of sex, we're not done with it. It's really important in the context of this particular novel. And of course we'll unpack all that kind of information as we go, but we're certainly not done with it. So anyway, as always, these videos are done with the intent to be as helpful as possible. And so you know how to reach out if you have any questions.